It's that time again. NFL Week 16, college football bowl season. What are we into? Week 2. I don't. It's if you haven't even realized the bowl season starts, join the club. How's it going, Mark?
I'm doing pretty good, Greg. Just looking forward to these bowl games picking up a little bit in excitement, if you
I hope
will,
so.
which I kind of hope
I
I
doubt it
think they're
though.
going to. Well, we've got some pretty good bowl games on tap. Maybe down the road, but nonetheless, we'll be patient. We'll wait, and we'll just take what the doctor gives
Yeah, we
us.
got those 3 playoff games. 2 of them will be in a couple of weeks on New Year's, and then a week after we'll have the championship game. Matter of fact, I spoke with Kevin Noon. He's a longtime Ohio State writer and podcaster. So that's available on the channels. Check that out. I spoke with Aaron McMahon from MichiganMLive.com, and we talked about the Michigan TCU game. Jed May from Rivals will be on if we anticipate Georgia beating Ohio State. If that happens, Jed May will be on with me. Matter of fact, I already have it set up. Is if Georgia and Michigan both win, they're both favored. Doesn't mean they're both going to win. But I have it set up, and I told both guys, I said, look, if it happens, so I'm not like trying to jinx Michigan, my team. I said, if Michigan wins and if Georgia wins, then I'm gonna have both Jed May and Aaron McMahon on the same show. So we'll have a Georgia and Michigan writer on at the same time. I could probably do the same maybe with Kevin Noon if Ohio State happens to win instead of Georgia. But I haven't been able to find a TCU guy, and I've looked for the past for months, even way before the playoffs. Sometimes you send out contact information like to 15 different people who cover it from all sorts of different websites, and you get nothing. So it is what it
Well,
is.
tell the Kevin guy to stand by for Ohio State because I think there's a possibility that we could end up having a Big Ten rematch in the championship game. That's me personally.
Yeah, and it was funny because we were talking about it as from an Ohio State and Michigan perspective. Not really sure that that's what you want. I mean, it is what you want if you know you're going to win, but it's dangerous because if you lose to your major rival in the championship game of college football when you've never played in the championship game against each other before, I mean, that's how hard it is losing the Super Bowl. We talk about it all the time. How hard it is. That's what it would be like, probably tenfold, because those fan bases. They're speaking to Kevin. He was talking about how there are fans who probably, because I said to him, I said, what would you if it's not going to happen because TCU and Michigan will play first, but if Ohio State fans knew that they were going to win, who would you rather play? Would you rather play Michigan or TCU? And then he turned it around and said, well, I'll tell you this. If Ohio State won and TCU won and Ohio State beat TCU for the championship, he'd say there'd be a lot of Ohio State fans that would not be satisfied. And there'd be Michigan fans that would be going, hey, you might have won the national championship, but we beat you. You haven't beaten us.
Yep,
That's how
yep,
those
yep.
fans are.
Well, that's how they think.
Yeah.
Sure,
So,
sure.
winning the national championship is not as important sometimes as winning that rivalry game.
Going down that same road, what you just mentioned, it's very, very difficult for rivals to meet in what would now be the college football playoff. We saw that in Georgia and
Yeah.
Alabama. Maybe not so much rivals, but it was very difficult to beat that same team twice and have to do it in a college football playoff game. So we'll see what
Yeah.
happens, but a lot of speculation between now and then.
We'll talk about some of these college football games in a little bit. And I already have all of my picks between now and then. And I'll throw them out there on right there on the ticker. But NFL, we're going to start with the NFL first. Big game tonight at East Rutherford, Jets and Jags. I believe the Jets are the favorite now
Yes,
by
they are.
about a point and a half. They were the
Yes.
dog to start, which would have been a bad thing for Jacksonville based on their history as a favorite. And I don't think it's going to change any. But remember, Jacksonville is still on a 6-game losing streak spread-wise as a favorite, and they're 0-3 this year as a favorite. So good for them if you're a Jag fan that they're now the underdog against the Jets. Why do you think that happened last week and this week? As far as the Jets, the Lions were the early favorite, just like Jacksonville last week, and then it switched to the Jets a few days later in both weeks.
Well, number one is at the top of the list is Vegas does not like Zach Wilson. Okay, they don't. There's no love or respect for him. They don't know what the situation was between him and Mike White, what was going to go on with the quarterback position. So the line vacillated a little bit between -1, -2, one side, either side, both ways. It's sort of settled in now, and the Jets have sort of settled in as the favorite. I think they've settled.
So you think the fans don't dislike Zach Wilson as much as Vegas does then?
Exactly right.
Okay.
Exactly. There's no respect for him at all in Vegas.
Okay.
That's part of the equation. And there's also love for Jacksonville in Vegas because of their body of work here of late. I mean, they've really, really played some solid football since Trevor Lawrence has come into his own. His quarterback rating is the highest of any quarterback in the NFL over the last 6 games. The numbers back all that up. So there's support and love for Jacksonville, like I say in Vegas, and not so much for the Jets when Zach Wilson is behind center. So a lot of that is working into this equation here in this game. One thing I'll mention here, though, Jacksonville, for as well as they played, they've lost 21 of their last 23 road games. They're going to have to find a way to win a football game away from home here sooner than later.
Yeah, and it is going to be tough for them because they had the overtime win, but it was an overtime game, and now they have the short week. So that's asking a lot. Plus, they've got to go northeast, and even though it's not Buffalo, it's going to be in the 40s.
Yep.
And it's going to be raining. So it's going to feel like, with the wind chill, it's going to feel like they're in the 30s and they're wet. So now I don't think this is a major benefit for the Jets because, again, they're not like Buffalo because you get these weather games and you just really don't know what's going to happen a lot of times. Fumbles, who knows how that's going to involve the game any, usually does. So look, look to me like it, and I'm not there, but you check it out before the game. It just looks to me, weather forecast wise, like it's just going to be raining like throughout the entire game. That could be miserable. So,
maybe they're lucky that way because if they'd have played Saturday or Sunday, it would have been more of a snowstorm than it would be the rain. So
yeah, maybe so. Yes.
Right. In that sense, right?
Yeah. All right. So that's, by the way, I like Jacksonville. I have a 3-star pick for Jacksonville this week, and here a couple of reasons. One is, and I said this a few days ago after the Jet game on my show. I think, and I said exclamation point, Jets lost confidence. Probably should have said question mark, but I just feel, and I think we'll see that tonight for sure, that if they lose to Jacksonville, I think it's all a confidence thing. You know how these young teams, when they start winning, like they did earlier this year, it's contagious. But once you start losing a little bit, that's also contagious. Which this is still a young team. These are big games. They've never been in this spot before. And and now Jacksonville is on, just like Detroit. Detroit has all the confidence. Detroit wins the game. Jacksonville has all the confidence. That's why I think some way Jacksonville is going to find a way to win this football game. And the other reason is because I do feel that if the Jets win this game, knowing they have Seattle up next, and we know how they're playing, that I just get the feeling that they're probably going to make the playoffs if they win this game. And I just think that works against the Jets because I think the odds are just against them in that situation. So I don't have a good feeling about tonight's game.
Well, the difference, I think, primarily between these two teams is there's a ton of pressure on the Jets and there's none on Jacksonville.
Yeah.
So, who plays better? I think loose and easy is the key in that contest, and I'm with you. I like Jacksonville in the game as well.
All right. Now, there's all those Saturday games because of Christmas, even though there's a couple of Christmas games. We'll get into that in a little bit. I have last week I had two upsets, and I split, which is always good. That means I made money. I had Atlanta And if it wasn't for Drake London fumbling the football late, could have had overtime, maybe more. And Jacksonville. And Jacksonville came up with the big win. I'm going right back to Atlanta. They're almost a 3-1 on the money line. There just doesn't look like Lamar Jackson's going to play again. Even Huntley is banged up a little bit, and he's just not a good player, not a good quarterback. So, hey, you know what? Desmond Ridder, it's his second start. He's got a little bit of, okay, I know what to do now. Plus, and look, if you want to take the points, I'm fine with that as well. Because even though the Falcons have lost 3 straight and 5 of 6, 4 of those 5 losses are by 6 points or less. And only 2 losses this year have been by more than 6 points. Baltimore 1-4 against the spread in their last 5. Their receiving core is all banged up. No Lamar Jackson, it looks like. I just see this. I see no reason to think that all of a sudden Baltimore is just going to go out there and put up a ton of points. Or, I mean, the best chance they have to cover in my mind is they win one of those really ugly 13-3 games.
Which is likely what it might be, something low scoring and boring just like that. You know, this is the kind of a game where it doesn't matter who it is Baltimore's playing. Baltimore's not playing well. They're going to struggle. They're going to struggle in this football game. They're down to a third string quarterback. I heard Huntley's out. So now it's a choice between Hundley and Brown, Don Brown, I guess. They're in total disarray for Baltimore, their third string quarterback.
Okay, I'll have to check up on that one.
Yeah. So, you know, they're digging that deep into the quarterback well, but there's a great angle inside of this game that really comes to Atlanta's support here, which it only happens once a year. It's like clockwork. It's like an annuity, a bank deposit every time it happens, and it's called the classic division sandwich. And what it basically amounts to is the fact that Baltimore is off back-to-back division games. They've got back-to-back division games on deck. And who's in the middle? A non-division team. Enter the Atlanta Falcons.
Okay.
And these teams really struggle in these particular roles. So even if they're healthy, they're playing well, it's a letdown bad spot here for Baltimore as well. So I'm with you. I think you're on the right side there, and especially on the money line side of the Falcons.
Okay, so Anthony Brown.
I
can't even believe this guy gets an NFL paycheck. I mean, this is the only way he can do it. Is he found a place where they're having backups, basically athletes, that this way they don't have to change the offense in case Lamar Jackson gets hurt. So they go to Huntley, who's an athlete who can't throw the ball. Brown, who's an athlete, can't throw the ball. So, okay. So this is even better because so that means Ridder, even though he's a rookie, is a lot better than Anthony Brown, who's also a rookie. So Ritter's going to have the quarterback advantage, most likely no matter who's the quarterback, actually. So, all right, I'll take that. So anyway, yeah, 3-1 on the money line if you want to go that route instead of just taking the points. You know what, too? I had spoken to Kevin Knight, who is the editor at thefalcoholic.com, very popular Atlanta Falcons website. And we talked about this, I think, a couple of months ago. Might have even talked about it in the preseason, about with all the money Atlanta has to spend next season, they're going to have more than anybody. And it's going to be a big offseason for Atlanta. They got draft picks. They got cash. And there's they talked about it. They said if Lamar Jackson doesn't go back to Baltimore, the Atlanta Falcons might be the perfect spot for him. So keep an eye on that. It probably makes sense, too.
It does make sense if it happens. You know, like you say, they've got all the wherewithal to bring him in, to reel him in. And if Lamar Jackson is holding out for what he feels he's worth, he could probably get it in Atlanta.
Okay, now Baltimore is battling the division with Cincinnati, and the Bengals are looking awfully good. We talked about it last week, and they just continue to play lights out football. And even when they're not playing all that great like last week, they find a way to come back and beat Tampa Bay. As I said last week, I can't bet Tampa Bay. Unless maybe they're playing Trace McSorley in Arizona this week. But other than that, so Cincinnati is still on a roll. Like I said last week, I think I've hit them like 5 straight weeks. They're now 10-2 straight up, 11-1 against the spread in their last 12. They're 6-0 straight up ATS last 6. The Patriots, 1-3 straight up ATS last 4. 1-5 straight up, 2-4 against the spread as a dog this year. Do you know the only team that the New England Patriots beat this season as a dog?
The only team they beat as a dog, it had to be a pretty good team, just the way you set that up.
Not really.
No, not really. Huh? Who is
No.
that? Who is that?
I set it up because it's your team.
Really?
The Cleveland Browns. They were a 1-point dog. 1 point
Wow.
at Cleveland. That's the only win for the Patriots as a dog this year. And they're 0-3, straight up ATS last 3 in that spot. So, yeah, look, I know sooner or later Cincinnati's going to lose. I get it. But, look, they're still playing for the division. There's still a lot to play for. And the Patriots, boy, the way they lost last week, and the way they've been playing when they have to step up a competition, it just hasn't been going that well for them.
Well, there's a lot to overcome here for Cincinnati to continue on this run. And if a run ends for a team, and it usually almost always does, it might end in a spot like this. You have a New England team that's scratching and clawing its best to carve out a playoff berth. They're just on the outside looking in. Bill Belichick has never lost the money as a non-division dog off a loss. 14 times, 14-0 to the spread. You've also got other factors here about Cincinnati's really struggled against this division in the past. Now, I know it's Joe Burrow and it's Belichick without Brady and all those good things. You know, a lot of that history doesn't really add up when you don't have the pieces in place that they had when they put those numbers together here. But if ever there's a good spot for New England, it's to catch a fat and sassy Cincinnati Bengal football team, and I think Cincinnati checks that box.
Bengals are 1 game behind Kansas City and Buffalo for the top spot in the AFC. They've already beaten the Chiefs, so they have that tiebreaker. So there's still a chance for the Bengals to get the top seed overall. Here's from the Playbook magazine. The Bengals have covered 12 straight as non-division favorites of 3 or more off of a non-conference game. And they're 3-0 this year in that same spot.
That goes dead into the Bill Belichick non-division angle. So which wins out? We're going to find out this Sunday.
The Patriots will host Miami next week and then at Buffalo. So Patriots are in trouble. That Vegas loss really, really hurt their chances. And Cincinnati next week hosts Buffalo. All right? So imagine that. So if Cincinnati wins this week, they will be playing Buffalo next week for first place in the AFC.
Wow. Big game.
Yeah.
But
they have to win this week, Cincinnati.
Yeah, they don't have to get caught looking past this.
Yeah. And Cincinnati will end the season at home against Baltimore.
Yep.
But without Lamar Jackson, Cincinnati, I'd be shocked if Cincinnati can't hold on to win that division. So, all right. Speaking of Kansas City, they've got Seattle. And this line, I was a little bit surprised it went all the way up to 10 just because Kansas City is not doing a good job of covering these games. They're 1-5 against the spread at home this year. They've dropped 5 straight spreads. First time they're home, by the way, since November 27. Seattle, meanwhile, 3-1 straight up ATS in their last 4 games as a true road dog. And they upset teams like the Chargers and the Lions among those upsets. I get it. Kenneth Walker's not 100%. That would be a big loss. If anything, they should hope at least DJ Dallas comes back because they have no non-existent running game if either one of those guys is not back there. But you know what? I figured, hey, if I'm going to do Atlanta, I'm going to go ahead and also roll the dice on Seattle on my money line because I just have to hit one of those 2, and I'll be in good shape.
Well, unlike Atlanta, Seattle is playing for something. You know, they're still very, very live for an NFL playoff berth in the NFC side of things. You bring out a great point about Kansas City playing down to the level of opposition. They've done that before in the past. We're seeing them do it again here at this football season here. I think the person can only look one way in this game, and it has to be Seattle plus the points, especially if you can get double digits.
Yeah, it's that. I know how it looks. I get it. Seattle is 1-4 in their last 5. They dropped 5 straight covers, and Chiefs have won 7 out of 8. But yeah, Seattle. This is pretty much, you would think they're in a, because if Seattle, they still have the edge because they beat Detroit and they're tied with Detroit, and you got the Giants and the Redskins are battling it out. Yeah, I'll say the Redskins. And you get the feeling if Seattle loses again though, that it's not looking good. But they get the Jets at home next week, and if the Jets lose to the Jags tonight, they may be almost like out of it. Who knows how they're going to respond? And then the Rams are their last game of the season, the Rams, and they get them at home. So that's almost like a win. That puts them at 8 wins, you would think, or hope if you're a Seattle fan. So if they can get 1 out of the next 2 wins, they might be in good shape for the playoffs.
You bring up an excellent point, and the thought just crossed my mind about Seattle, not expected to be where they are. Other NFL football teams that are pushing for playoff position that weren't expected to be where they are. The New York Jets, the New York Giants. So you take a look at when the dust settles in the National Football League this season, all of these wannabes, these pretenders that wanted to be a contender, see exactly how they sift out if they don't end up bottoming out and going back to the pack here. Coming close, but no cigar. And which one of this group, Jets, Giants, Seahawks, will ultimately end up breaking on through to the other side? That'll be interesting. We can evaluate that at the end of the season.
All right. Let's talk about your team, Cleveland. This is, again, one of my 3-star picks, just like Jacksonville. Cleveland, 2.5 over New Orleans. Home finale for the Brownies. I'm sorry, but the Saints, there's nothing about the Saints outside of playing teams maybe from their own division or, bad teams that I just think that they are a team you should be afraid of. Cleveland, to me, is just a much better team. Yeah, I know they've had their issues this year, but Deshaun Watson is now the quarterback. We know that if Watson was there from the beginning of the season, this team would be a playoff team. They've won 3 straight up and against the spread at home. And they're 3-1 in their last 4 straight up ATS. Yeah, I like Washington. I only have to give 2.5. And like I said, there's no way. I can't believe the Saints are even going to sniff the playoffs, even though they're right there. They got a shot. I can't see Dennis Allen leading the Saints to the postseason.
Well, you've got 2 really good angles, if you will, division angles, going side by side in here. The Browns own the NFC South. The Saints struggle against the AFC North. But I think what really works in this football game is the fact that what you're going to have here is you're going to have a dome team playing outdoors in frigid weather.
Good point.
I'm talking like minus 14 wind chill factor with winds of 50 miles an hour coming off of Lake Erie. And I've been there and I've sat in that stadium with those winds. It's going to be a place that no one from New Orleans is going to want to be at on Saturday in this football game. I think the weather is going to be a big, big deciding factor, and it can only benefit Cleveland in this game.
And on the Playbook Experts Playbook ATS show, which is already available, you can check that out on the Playbook Experts YouTube channel. There was a very interesting total I heard about this game. Is it still in the low 30s?
The total on this game, is this the game that Victor alluded to that the total was 32 points?
Yes.
Yes, okay. 32 points in an NFL football game.
Come on.
Yep.
I think the Baltimore game should probably be like 32 points. That I would understand.
I can understand because of Atlanta's sort of lack of offense, if you will.
They got backup quarterback, they got rookie potential quarterbacks going up against each other.
Exactly. But that'll be interesting to see a total this low. Just on principle, you have to look to the over here. But I don't know how much weather's going to impact these games this weekend. I have a feeling from everything I'm reading and hearing, it's going to be a big factor in these football games. I mean, what I'm saying is it's going to be every bit as cold as they're forecasting. But in the Cleveland situation, the reason this total is so low is because of those howling winds we're talking about.
Yeah.
And those winds really affect totals in football games, and that's why you see this low total in this game.
Well, the good thing is for Cleveland, they can run the football.
Yes, they can.
So, Buffalo, speaking of cold weather games, will be in Chicago. And Buffalo's won 5 straight. Chicago's lost 7 straight and 10 of 11. But Buffalo is 1-6 against the spread in their last 7. And that's why I'm taking the Bears. I took them last week against the Eagles, and I'm doing it again. I'm taking the Bears and the 9 against Buffalo. And how about this? Again, from the Playbook magazine, the Chicago Bears are 16-1 against the spread as a home dog of more than 4 points following consecutive straight-up losses. And they're 1-0 in that spot this year because they covered against the Philadelphia Eagles last week. So I'm going right back with the Bears again in this spot.
Well, you can throw the look ahead to Kansas City in this game for Buffalo here as well.
Yeah.
Cincinnati.
Yeah.
Or Cincinnati. I'm sorry. Yeah.
And by the way, that's on Monday Night Football.
It is. Okay. But I think that factors into the handicap in this game here as well. How are you going to be as pumped up for this team as you are possibly your next game? You're not. And you've got in Chicago a football team that we saw what they did against Philadelphia. They hung the number in there, and I expect this game to be much the same. Look for them to play close, hang the number, take the loss, and we'll talk about the Buffalo-Cincinnati game next week.
Yeah, because again, the Buffalo situation is all about home field. That's what they're playing for. Chicago is the number 2 seed for the draft right now, behind Houston. So you don't want to ruin that. And another little bit of total data I heard on the show, Victor, the total king, talked about how the Buffalo Bills are under all 7 road games this year. All 7.
Under all 7 road games. And we'll share with the listeners here about the murderous angle that Victor shared in the game. And simply put, it's just an AFC single-digit road favorite at an NFC site. It's 2-25 or 2-26 to the under. Just that simple.
Wow.
AFC single-digit road favorite at NFC 2-26. 2 overs, 26 unders. Fits into this game here as well. So more supporting cast for the under in this football game.
And I hardly ever do totals. I mean, I just don't. Like the only way I would even consider a total, and I still didn't do it. It was the Army Navy game, and we saw what happened because of overtime.
Right.
But I'm even gonna put it right here: Buffalo, Chicago, under. Because I have to remind myself, because I just never do them. I never do the totals, but I have to do it. I have to do the total. I have to do the under in that game. All right.
I concur.
Now, let's talk about the Detroit-Carolina game. Detroit's a 3-point favorite on the road. Home finale for Carolina. Who knows who's going to win the NFC South? Tampa Bay still with the lead, and you would think that Tampa Bay still should wrap this up by default. But Carolina, they're hanging in there. And Carolina's at Tampa Bay next week. So if Carolina can win this game, then they can go head-to-head with the first-place team next week on the road. For Detroit, they are on a major roll, as we know. They've won 6 out of 7. They've covered 7 straight games. And I don't know how they're going to do it, but they're making the postseason. And I love this game. I'm taking Detroit as my top pick of the week.
Well, they're on this major roll. There's no question about that. They look to be the first team that starts the season 1-6 to break on through to the NFL playoff party if they do just that. And it's really difficult stepping in front of this team right now because they're finding ways to win football games, even when it looks like the blackest of clouds is hanging over their head. But in Carolina, you got a football team here that has not raised the white flag when, especially after McCaffrey left. They've been playing their best football since he left. And they're only 1 game behind Tampa Bay right now. I think this game is going to be really nice. You got 2 under-the-radar teams playing in what might be playoff-like atmosphere in this football game here. I think it's a really, really tough call. And if people have been riding Detroit, I would say continue the ride. If you haven't been riding Detroit, you might not want to hop on when the merry-go-round's going this fast, this quickly, so suddenly. So to me, I think it's going to be one of my favorite games to watch and not bet this week.
Imagine that. The Detroit Carolina game is going to be one of your favorite games to watch. Okay. Minnesota at home against the Giants as around a 4-point favorite, 4.5. Home finale for the Vikings. So I have to ask you, in your database, tell me, Mark, teams coming off 30 or more point comeback wins, how do they do the next week?
Well, I'm still looking for that answer, Greg, okay? Because it was the largest in NFL football history.
Crazy.
But I'm going to throw something at you that might blow your mind a little bit here. Minnesota, should they make the playoffs, which they're going to do, they've already clinched a playoff berth, okay?
Yeah.
The team in the National Football League who owns the league's worst-ranked defense, as Minnesota does, has never won a playoff game.
Yeah, sure. I can see that.
Yep, they've been there twice. They got blown out both times. Okay,
and they're going to be, and they have 11 wins, so they're probably going to end up as the 3 seed, but they could end up as the 2 seed.
Maybe they could, right? Maybe they could.
Which means they're going to play. It could be a big upset. If let's just say right now they're the 2 seed, so they would play the 7 seed. So the 7 seed could end up. Let's say it's Detroit.
It could be favored. It's Detroit at Minnesota. I think Detroit would be favored if they played that first round of the playoffs this week.
Crazy.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And by the way, this could be a playoff matchup right here.
Yes, it
Giants could be the 7th seed.
Yep.
They are getting 170 on the money line. Look, Giants beat Washington, but that's one thing. I think, though, look, all things considered, Minnesota is still a better team than the Giants. But how does Minnesota respond? After clinching a home playoff berth, they're not going to get number 1 seed. Does this game really mean a whole lot? They may take a little bit of a break and a breath and pat themselves in the back for that type of win last week. But let's keep in mind that they're 7-0 straight up as a home favorite this year. 7-0. 4-3 against the spread. I'm not touching this game, but that's what you're going with. Are you touching this game?
I'm going to lean to the Giants in the game here, just for all the anti-Minnesota numbers and stuff that we have. They've been really good as a dog under Brian Daboll this season here, 7-2 to the number. I think the win they had last week was a confidence-building win for them. It keeps them alive, keeps them confident in this football game. And I think Minnesota is just a fraud waiting to be exposed any given Sunday in the National Football League. So I can only take the points in this football game and wait and see exactly. I'm curious. Like I said, Minnesota makes the playoffs. They're going to be a 2 or 3 seed. I want to see if they're the home dog in that first round of the playoffs.
Okay, and then the last game on Saturday at 1:00. And how about this? Tennessee is a 4-point favorite against a 1-win Houston team at home. And you know what? Houston may be the play, because I said this all the way up into and during the draft process that this Malik Willis deal was like the most overblown nonsense about him possibly being a first-round draft pick. And he landed where he should have landed, a few rounds later. But you could see from the game against Kansas City this year when he played, he is not an NFL quarterback. He never will be. And remember last week when I was going over the playoffs and the games, and I said, and I had picked Jacksonville to upset Dallas. Hey, if Jacksonville upsets Dallas and Tennessee loses to the Chargers, they're an underdog, and Jacksonville can get within 1 game of Tennessee, they play them the last game of the season. They've already beaten Tennessee, which means as long as they now hang with Tennessee until the last game and then beat Tennessee in the final game, Jacksonville is going to the postseason, not Tennessee. And that's right now how I see it. Even if Jacksonville loses to the Jets, Jacksonville plays Houston next week.
They're still alive, yes.
Tennessee has got to play Dallas next week. So even if Tennessee were to win this week and Jacksonville loses, Tennessee is going to lose next week. Jacksonville's going to win next week. And then they're going to play in the last game of the season. And Jacksonville's going to beat them. And Jacksonville's going to knock out Tennessee.
That would be just rewards for the Jaguars, who have earned everything that they've done this football season. And we know all about Tennessee, the phoniest record in the NFL. Minnesota on the NFC side of things, Tennessee on the AFC side of things. Just continue to keep getting pounded in the stats. And you said it all. A 4-point favorite against a 1-win team, and they're at home in the football game? It's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. The game is almost impossible to handicap because there's all kinds of value to Tennessee for the number here, but there's value for a reason. And I'll never, ever second guess the odds maker and knee jerk to Tennessee just because of the line. The odds maker knows what he's doing. And with that being said, I'm passing the football game.
Yeah. I mean, well, look at Houston. The last 2 weeks, they nearly beat Dallas as a 14-point road dog, gave up the lead late, and then they went to overtime with Kansas City as a 14-point dog.
And we're beating him at the half. Right, exactly.
So the way this is going on, why wouldn't you think Houston's capable of beating Malik Willis and Tennessee? You got to believe that they are going to hand that football off, what do you think, 35 times?
Well, you would think so. It's going to be the Derrick Henry show. You know what I mean? It's got to have to be.
He's got to have a season high in carries. Has to.
But what happens if he breaks down? Okay.
And that's quite possible.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So, it's really, really a bizarre football game, to say the least.
Tennessee beat Houston week 8 as a 1-point favorite, 17-10. That one, of course, in Houston. And right now, keep in mind, too, that, let's see. I don't really need to use that trend. I think that's not worth talking about. Now, let's go over some of the 4 o'clock games, starting with Washington and San Francisco. This one is too tough for me to take. San Francisco is a 7.5-point favorite. I was tempted to take Washington because of the 3-1 money line. It really was. But I don't know. You just talked about, and anytime, like with the Giants, things weren't going well. They got the win, and now maybe they'll get some momentum. Well, same thing happens when you have momentum and then you lose it. It's hard to get back. And now that's kind of the way I think we're going to go with Washington. They had that streak. It came to a close, and now they're coming off a loss to the Giants. And I know they got robbed by the refs. I mean, it was awful. That guy, that referee they should investigate him to make sure he didn't have a bet on the game. I'm not joking, because that was that bad. But still, this is a tough spot because after this, Washington will host Cleveland and Dallas. So this is a tough stretch for Washington. And San Francisco, it's not like they're in a situation where they could just kind of take a breather, because we just talked about the fact that Minnesota's got the number 2 seed. So San Francisco is the number 3 seed right now in the NFC West. So I'm sure they'd like to make sure that they put themselves in the best position as possible. So they're going to be playing this game. It's way too early. There's still several games left. They're not taking this game for granted. But I just can't take this game because the spread's kind of large. And I also look at the fact that Washington has won 3 straight this year as a road dog, including the upset win against the best record in football, the only team to beat the Philadelphia Eagles.
This is a real tough call. I would have to lean to Washington because of the points. The points make the play. San Francisco can win the football game, feel good about it. They get out here with a 6-point win, a 5-point win, a 3-point win. But you got Washington's whole season is basically on the line here, especially after last week. Having a chance for a victory, taking the rug pull right out from underneath them. I don't see Ron Rivera letting this football team get down in this football contest here. I think they're going to come with everything they've got. And this could be a little bit more of a flat spot for Frisco than it for sure is for Washington. So for that reason, give me Washington, and I'll take the 7.
What intrigued me the most about avoiding taking Washington was that, again, thanks to the Playbook magazine, and this is only if the line goes to 8. The line is 7.5. If the line is 8, San Francisco is 15-1 against the spread as conference. Excuse me, not San Francisco, Washington. So if you're thinking to take a Washington and you want icing on the cake, Washington is 15-1 against the spread as conference road dogs of 8 or more. And they were 1-0 this year when they upset Philadelphia on the road outright. So that's a big, but again, it's only 7.5. It's not 8, but that would be icing on the cake if you were taking Washington.
I think we'll see 8 on Sunday, though. The public's going to be on Frisco and not Washington. The public doesn't want to hurry up and back a team that lost last week against the darling San Francisco 49ers right now. So I think you'll see 8 in this football game on Sunday.
Okay, and then we've got...
Or Saturday, I should say.
Yeah, and then we got the game that we thought was going to be a huge matchup. Still could be, but without Jalen Hurts, it's going to be Gardner Minshew against the Cowboys, who may not have Micah Parsons. He's also dealing with an injury. This was a game that I decided to stay away from because initially I'm like, you know what? The Eagles are too good to pass up as a one-loss team getting almost 2-1 on the money line. But then I'm also thinking about, are the Eagles really a one-loss team anyway? I mean, let's be real here. They're not. I'm sorry, they're not that good. Very good, but they're not that good. Dallas, meanwhile, 19-3 as division favorites against the spread as division favorites of more than 2 points, and that's over the last 22 games. And then you look at the fact that when Philly beat Dallas earlier this year, they did it with the backup quarterback. So Dallas maybe try to get their revenge, beat the Eagles with their backup quarterback. So there's a lot of stuff that actually I think sides to taking Dallas. They beat the Eagles the last 4 times at home by 73 points. The last 3 home games, Dallas has beaten the Eagles by 20, 20, and 27 points. So the Eagles have had a hard time, to say the least, going to Dallas. So that's why I decided just too many things that I felt I'm going to stay away from it. But I could see either way, especially if you're too tempted to pass on taking Philadelphia as a 2-1, as almost a 2-1 dog.
First time this season, Philadelphia is an underdog, by the way.
There you go.
Yes. So, that's a little bit of the disrespect card there for the Eagles in the contest. But one thing that I heard that is interesting to me, with Gardner Minshew, now the quarterback, a couple of things about him. He struggled. He's only won one of his last 9 starts. We'll acknowledge that. But he's also been terrific as a division dog in his game in the NFL. In fact, a dog of more than 5 points, he's 4-0 against the spread in this particular role. But the point I was getting to is that he did the eulogy for Mike Leach at the services. And he had deep respect for Mike Leach and vice versa. And it was Gardner Minshew who did the eulogy. And he made the comment afterwards that he is going to go out and win this game for Coach Leach.
Uh-oh.
There you go.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. I think I'll put a couple of bucks on the Eagles.
There you go.
Or at least a parlay. I'll start the Eagles parlay with maybe a few of my top bowl games.
Well, you're going to get a good effort is all I'm saying here, okay? Now, will it be enough? I do know this. Dak Prescott is a turnover machine, okay? And if he turns the ball over in the football game, Dallas stands no chance, not against a quality football team like the Philadelphia Eagles. Give me the points with a team that's never taken the points thus far this football season and has only lost 1 game. I'll be on the Eagles in this game.
Okay. And then you get the really nice, classic, old-time teams, the Raiders and the Steelers on Saturday Night Football. Pittsburgh's a 2.5-point home favorite. And Raider fans are happy about that because I actually thought they might favor the Raiders in this game, and we all know what would have happened if they were a favorite in this game. Just like Jacksonville. So Jacksonville and Raider fans really happy that they're not the favorite this week. But as a dog, Very different. Raiders are 2-1 straight up, 3-0 against the spread. Their last 3 is a road dog. And overall, they're 4-1 in their last 5. They're only lost that crazy comeback loss to the Rams, which has really destroyed their playoff chances. But they're still in it. They run the table. You never know what could happen. Pittsburgh's won 4 of the last 6, and then they get the motivational situation on Saturday night as well with Franco passing away.
Well, I think that's a huge motivational factor for a couple of reasons, Greg. Number one, that was planned, okay, before his passing. This was all planned. In other words, it's not being thrown together at the last minute just because he passed. This was a remembrance of Franco Harris, the Hall of Fame football player that they were going to honor in this football game, and they're still going to obviously honor Franco Harris. And I think that's going to drive the players to a new height in this football contest. That and the fact they're playing for Mike Tomlin, since T.J. Watt's been back, they've been a very, very good football team.
What a surprise.
Yeah, come on.
I'm telling you, he should get quarterback spreads. Hey, if TJ's out, 3 points, 3 extra points for the Steelers if he's out or if he's playing.
He probably deserves it. I mean, I wouldn't argue with you on that. The other side of the coin is this, as you talked about earlier, 6 domed teams playing in frigid weather sites this week. This is one of them. The comfortable Vegas Raiders out of Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas going to be playing in Pittsburgh on is it Saturday
night? Last game.
On Saturday.
Yep.
Tell me how comfortable the Raiders are going to be in that stadium Saturday night when it's 0 degrees and wind chill factors of who knows what. This is the kind of a game that the Steelers couldn't ask for anything more. I think they're going to roll over Vegas.
Wow. All right. By the way, Pittsburgh, whoever wins this game still has a chance. Outside chance, but still has a chance for the wild card in the AFC. The loser is done. Then on Sunday, this is Christmas. We have a really good Christmas first game between the Packers and the Dolphins. Dolphins are a 3.5-point favorite. Packers have to win out and still hope that they can find a way. I don't think it's possible, especially with the schedule. They got to go to Miami. They still have to play Minnesota and Detroit, rivals. I don't see it. Miami has lost 3 straight games now, and but they're back home. They're 3-0 straight up, 2-1 against the spread as a home favorite this year. I think that's going to continue. I like Miami. They're one of my better picks this week. Yeah, I just think when you're matching them up, who's better? It's Miami. And after those 3, especially the Buffalo loss, they are starving for a win to stop the bleeding. And I see the Dolphins I just think it's a better team and desperate for a win, and I think they'll get it done.
I just wonder how much it was coming so close to beating Buffalo and not getting it, letting it slip away in the late stages like they did. How much of an effect it's going to have on them. We're going to find that out in this game.
Yeah, how's their confidence level?
Yeah, exactly right. We mentioned in our newsletter, the Playbook newsletter, that the Packers aren't dead. They've just been comatose, okay? Now suddenly, Aaron Rodgers smells playoff blood, okay? With that win, a win here, suddenly they're going to put themselves right back into the playoff hunt here. And one thing going on down here in Miami, I want to throw this note out in passing here. Everybody in Miami is crying that Tua Tagovailoa is not making the Pro Bowl. He is not selected to the Pro Bowl. Yeah. But how could he, Greg? Ahead of Josh Allen? No. Ahead of Patrick Mahomes? No. Ahead of Joe Burrow?
No.
Bye-bye Tua.
How is anybody going to make the Pro Bowl in the AFC with those 3 guys every year?
Anybody in the NFL.
Yeah, come on.
Exactly right.
It's not happening. Yeah, but hey, look, good point. And I just think there's something about this Packer team this year that just bugs me. I don't know what it is. It's just, yeah. But this is it. I mean, if they win this game, then all bets are off. They have a shot. If they lose this game, it's over. So they are playing for their playoff lives. And when you have Aaron Rodgers there, like you said, it's not a bad idea because the money line's almost 2-1.
Yep.
So, but I don't know. I just think the Dolphins are a better team than Green Bay, and we'll see if they can prove that. But they're 1-10 against the spread versus losing teams off back-to-back straight-up wins.
Oh.
So there's that. Next week, Miami's at New England. And if the Jets do beat Jacksonville, keep in mind the last game of the regular season, Jets at Miami. And the Jets already beat Miami.
Yep.
So as long as they stay a game behind Miami, that game could, if the Jets win tonight, could be who's in, who's out. Explain to me why they couldn't move this game like 6 weeks ago. Denver at the LA Rams. Who on earth on Christmas Day at 4:30 is going to turn the TV on and watch Denver and the Rams?
I would say Sean McVay's mother and Hackett's mother.
I mean, you didn't have enough time to change this game. Come on, man. This is just embarrassingly bad.
You know what it means, though, Greg? It means that it doesn't matter who plays for the National Football League. It's still ukus of money. It's still eyeballs.
Still football.
It's still football. Yeah. Exactly right. So I don't think their blood pressure raised or lowered any at all as it fell out the way it is.
How crazy you have to be to put money on that game. That's like putting money on a preseason game or something.
It's incredible. I mean, how could Denver be favored against anybody, let alone on the road? Anybody.
That shows you how the Rams are.
Exactly.
Baker Mayfield, go get him. All right, and then Sunday night, like this is any better. Tampa Bay at Arizona. Look, I understood this game could have been better, but Kyler Murray's done. It's Trace McSorley making his first start. Tampa Bay, this is the only way I would pick Tampa Bay. The only way. So I'll take Tampa Bay minus the 7. I just can't. Look, Arizona lost by 9 to Denver. So I think Tampa Bay and their defense can win this game against Trace McSorley. So I'll take Tampa Bay.
Well, Trace McSorley, I was reading some stats on him. His stats were horrific. Not even bad, horrific.
He's not an NFL quarterback.
No, he's not.
He was in that Baltimore Raven thing about backing up Lamar Jackson because he's an athletic quarterback, and I don't know why he thinks he can go somewhere else.
But
that's right, Kyler Murray's there, so it's another athletic quarterback.
But Arizona needs a body, and he's the next man up, I guess, in that sense for Arizona.
Third string.
Terrible game, though, to have to watch. But, yeah, I'm with you. I think Tom Brady could be so embarrassed after this, I think his worst performance that I recall ever seeing in that third quarter. He went brain dead to turn a 17-0 lead into 31 consecutive points with 4 third quarter turnover points. Unbelievable. But we'll see whether or not that works out for Tom Brady or not. I think Tom Brady, I'm not telling you anything you don't know or any of the listeners or viewers out here don't know, but his better days are long in the rearview mirror.
Yeah, it's look, if he's going to wind up playing, the bottom line is you have to, every move you make in free agency and the draft has got to be on the offensive line and in the running game. You cannot have Tom Brady anymore we're a passing team. No, you're not. You are not a passing team anymore. You got to run the ball 30 times a game, and you have to protect him and make sure that he can stand in the pocket and not have any pressure. If you can't do that, you shouldn't be playing anymore. That's just the bottom line because this is the result. So, all right. And then finally, Monday Night Football, the Chargers and the Colts. And I guess we could say the same thing about the Colts. How do teams fare when you blow a 33-point lead at halftime or whatever it was? But I can't imagine it's going to be very good considering they're not even going to be in the playoffs. I mean, they have nothing to rebound from. And the Chargers are getting hot. They've won 3 out of 4. They've won 4 straight as a road favorite this year. I think that's going to continue. I'll take the Chargers minus the 5. I know Nick Foles is coming back. We'll see what happens there. But everything is right now there for the Chargers with the Rams next. The Rams next. And then Denver after that. I mean, this is their schedule, and they're already inside the playoffs. I mean, if they can't make the playoffs now, Brandon Staley will be fired. There is no doubt about that. So I think the Chargers are going to just find a way now to breeze their way through to the postseason.
Well, they've got 3 easy streets on deck, 3 losing teams. There's no excuses for the
None.
Chargers, none whatsoever. You just hope that they don't begin to want to coast and think that this game is a gimme after that. I happen to think that because you have a team of athletes, NFL caliber athletes with the Colts here, that they are so red-faced and embarrassed, they're going to be the focus team on Monday night, the only team in the league playing a football game. I think you're going to see a good effort from the Colts here. Not because of Jeff Saturday and not because of the talent on the team, just because of what happened last week. That's my opinion.
All right. Let's wrap it up with college football. We're just going to go over the games that I like as far as my game. I don't have a lot of them. We can get your perspective on those games. And we're going to start, first of all, not going to go with dates. I'm just going to go with picks. I have 2 picks, regular picks. I got Wyoming over Ohio and Utah over Penn State. And I told you about we talked about the Wyoming deal. I just don't understand why Wyoming's an underdog against Ohio. I mean, without their star quarterback, I don't get this. I mean, Mountain West is clearly better than the MAC, and the MAC team has no quarterback, and the Mountain West Conference team has been, discarded the whole season. They're not going to be any good. They're no good, and they were this close from beating Boise State and playing for the Mountain West Conference championship game. I'm sorry, I don't understand why they're a dog.
I think a lot of that goes to the fact that the MAC was way down this year. And Wyoming was very erratic at this football season.
Oh, you mean the Mountain West?
The Mountain West,
yes.
It
was down, yeah.
Yes. And for as erratic as Wyoming did play, Ohio U did close the season out in a really strong fashion. They played a gutsy game against Toledo in the MAC title game, lost it, almost got a cover, but didn't quite do that. But like you say, with the quarterback not being there, it's a little bit mind-boggling to me as well. I can only look at the Cowboys in that game with you.
I have one upset, and that is going to be Tennessee. And I figured this is as good as an upset as there could be. They're almost 2-1 on the money line. Yes, I know Hendon Hooker's not playing, but I don't care. Look, Clemson, they've already moved on. They've got the freshman quarterback. This is his job now for next year, so he's going to start. But he hasn't looked all that great either. I mean, they have no passing game. And Clemson's, they beat the ACC teams. Well, they just played an SEC team, and they lost to South Carolina in the last game. Well, Tennessee is an SEC team, and even without their starting quarterback, I still think they're on par with South Carolina. So I think if you're looking for an upset play, I think this is as good as any.
I agree with you. This is a Clemson football team I think can be had. And I don't like the rhetoric that's coming out of Dabo Swinney again here right now. I don't know if you heard about him talking about the NIL.
What's he saying now?
I've never heard anything so sacrilegious in my life. He's talking about his players. We are a band of players who adheres to the NIL because we follow God's rules in the NIL.
He's getting religious about it?
Yes. God's rules in the with the NIL. With
a straight face.
Yes.
Okay.
So anyhow, that's Dabo Swinney. This Tennessee football program here, their season kind of went sour and then sideways, obviously with the loss to Hooker, but they're still a deeply, deeply talented football team. And you know something? You talk about maybe not being in the playoff where they wanted to be. Hey, the fall to the Rose or the Orange Bowl is not that far of a fall, believe me.
And Tennessee, it wasn't like they started the season, SEC championship or bust. We're a great football team. Nobody expected them to be as good as they were.
Nope, not at all. Not at all. And so, they may have a lot to want to play for in this game.
Yeah.
I'm going to let it go because, number one, I think the points might make the play because Tennessee taking the points in this football game like they are. But I think it's going to be a very enjoyable game to watch. I think you're going to end up seeing Tennessee here trying to make a statement in this contest and probably doing so.
All right. The other game that I was leaning towards being a solid money line play, and I still think it is, but I took the points, and that's Ohio State as one of my 3 stars getting 7. And again, I had the interview with Kevin Noon. That's available from Ohio State, BuckeyeHuddle.com. But yeah, I just think that in this spot, And look, I think Ohio State's a delicate psychological team. No doubt about it. And talking to Kevin, he's saying that. He says, how are they going to react? There's a lot of those players for that week between the Michigan game and not knowing if they were going to be in the postseason. There were probably quite a number of players who had already checked out. Where am I going to go with the draft? Am I going to transfer? The season's over. And now they've got to change the mindset of, hey, I'm a Buckeye. Hey, we're going to the playoffs. So I can see, and plus, how damaged are they psychologically from the Michigan loss, confidence-wise? I get all that, but I'm still not, we've talked about this, I'm not overly impressed with this Georgia team like last year's team. They're still a very good team. They still might be the best team in college football, but I just wonder whether or not they can be had. And if so, this might be the team that could beat them.
That's the great point in this football game, because we know that no team has ever repeated in the college football playoffs. So if Georgia doesn't repeat, do they lose here or do they lose in the championship game if that is going to continue there that way? I think it starts here. I think Ohio State is playing with house money in this football game right now. And you know how deeply talented this football program is. They were number 2 or 3 all football season long until one bad game came along at the end of the season here.
Vegas says if they play Michigan in the championship, they are still a 3-point favorite. That means Vegas believes they're still the second best team in college football.
That's exactly what that means. And, why I'm not going to second guess Vegas, okay? I do know that the talent is there at Ohio State. And I do know that Georgia, as you just said, is not as good this year as they were last year. They climbed the mountain last year. There's no way on God's green earth can they be up to that same level the very next year. Not, especially with the depletion that they took in the draft last year. They were murdered in the draft. I know they restocked, but that team was as talented as any in a long, long time. You can compare them maybe to LSU and Joe Burrow's type football team, what Georgia was last year. But you can't play that same level back-to-back years, and I think this is where Georgia might stub their toe. I agree with you, and I'll throw this number at you here again here. How about the Buckeyes? Give them 3 points. How about 14-1 against the spread as the dog of 3 or more points? That's a pretty strong number here, to be waving at the Buckeyes in a football game like this.
So I've got them as one of my 3 stars. My other 3-star is Tulane, the Group of 5 champ. And this is only about, and we've talked about this many times, it's about who wants to be there and who doesn't. And this is the Super Bowl of Super Bowls for the program at Tulane. This is the greatest thing to ever happen to Tulane college football. And you have a USC team that came this close to playing for the playoffs. And if they play for the playoffs, we don't even see Ohio State, by the way. So we have USC in the playoffs. Instead, they get beat up by Utah late in the game, and it's all gone. Everything is gone, and now they're playing in a game that, okay, yes, it's a Cotton Bowl. It's nice to be here and all that, and it's great for the program. Look where they were last year. We're on the rise, but still, I think it's going to be hard for these guys to come and we want to beat Tulane. Yes. So I just got to go with Tulane.
I agree with you 100%. The number's short, almost too short.
Yeah, that's the worrisome thing. It's only 3. Yeah.
I'm expecting to take 6 points in this game.
Oh, you think it's going to double by game time?
No. I was expecting.
Oh, you expected? I was too. Yes, I expected at least 7 points. Yeah.
Yeah. So we didn't see it. So now we have to settle for what's out there. Yeah. But again, don't handicap the odds maker. Just take what he puts out there and then handicap the game. So as he handicapped the game, you've got all kinds of Southern Cal letdown here. The epitome of a team that doesn't want to be here to the team that does want to be here. And that little ditty, I think we shared on the show maybe last week, about there's never been a Heisman Trophy winning team that's won or covered the spread in a bowl game when they're coming off a loss.
0-8.
0-8, yes. So
and that's not just against the spread. That's straight up.
0-8 straight up and against the spread, both ways, right? Yes. So that's a pretty strong little number here as well. So I'm with you. I think this is the epitome of that, the guy that wants to be there, who's the dog of the team that doesn't.
And then we also have the Pac-12 trend about
Oh,
if you give up more than 25 points a game, uh, you are, what is it? 0-14 against the spread, last 14 bowl games?
yes. If your defense is leaky, you've also got the Pac-12 trend where if you're taking on a team that's off a win, they're 1-24 against the spread. So I mean, there's just a mountain full
Yes.
of good numbers here to Tulane in this football game.
My 4-star is South Carolina. Why not? I took them big against Clemson, and they came through big time in that money line. Maybe the time off will put a pause to their fantastic finish. Beat Tennessee and knock them out of a playoff berth. Beat Clemson and knock them out of a playoff berth in back-to-back weeks. So they're playing Notre Dame. It's not like they're going up against some sort of great college football team this season. Notre Dame, good season, but their best win was Clemson. South Carolina took care of Clemson as well. I just think that the way South Carolina, this is about also just, hey, let's keep this going. Let's not stop. Let's keep this. Let's make sure those last 2 wins. We're playing this glorious football program. Let's beat this program and let's move on and let's have a really great season next season.
With the team that's playing with all the momentum that you can ask for, and what this game also means, Greg, is recruiting for South Carolina. You knock off a Notre Dame after having what you've just done to close out the football season here, it opens up the doors in the recruiting world for South Carolina.
Yes.
So this is a huge game for them, and I think they'll come with everything they've got.
Yeah, and this is also, let's see here. I believe I got this from the Bowl Guide, I believe. First-year head coaches favored in bowls are just 16-32 against the spread.
Yep.
And when they face an opponent off a win, just 2-12 against the spread. So yeah, and there's also something about versus an opponent off an upset win. Notre Dame 7-15 straight up ATS last 22 bowls, 3-14 against the spread versus an opponent off a win. South Carolina 6-2 last 8 bowl games straight up ATS. And my 5-star pick, it's not going to be some glorious team. It's a big game, but I'm going all in on the Dukies to complete the magical season against Central Florida, coming off the disappointing end of the season, losing to Army, losing to Tulane, Navy, losing to Tulane. The season is just, we're playing Duke. It's just, Duke, though, should never have been in a bowl. One of the worst teams in the FBS this year. And since the beginning of the season, we've been behind Duke, and what a great turnaround it's been. And I think they're going to wrap it up with a bowl win.
I don't disagree at all. I think Duke's accomplished a lot this football season here. I don't think they're finished yet here as well. And I think they're going to come also with everything they've got. I agree. I don't know about a 5-star play, but I agree. Okay.
All right, so that's going to wrap it up. Next week, believe it or not, week 17 in the NFL, and we're going to have a lot more NFL talk, obviously, over the next few weeks before the playoffs. Ryan Dunleavy will join us for our playoff preview in a few weeks. And next week, we'll preview the playoff games. We'll go a little bit more in depth on the Ohio State matchup with Georgia and the TCU-Michigan game, which we didn't talk about at all on today's show. Meanwhile, Mark, of course, you've got this week's ATS show already available for anybody out there who wants to check it out with you and Victor on Playbook Experts YouTube channel.
That's correct. Great show we had again this week. Here, a lot of really good information. We shared a little bit of it earlier. Check it out on the YouTube channel, the Playbook Experts. And you can also get free video plays from the Playbook Experts as well. So check that out when you're online at playbooksports.com.
Mark, week 17 in the NFL next week. Can't wait.
Unbelievable, Greg. Be well. Good luck, and let's hope the ball bounces our way this week.
By the way, Merry Christmas to all our viewers out there.
And likewise as well. Thank you.
Happy holidays. We'll see you next week.